Hello, my name's Josh. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I've recently been through a divorce. Thanks for coming back to my channel. So, this last week marks 1 year since my divorce was finalized. So I've spent a fair amount of time reflecting on this last year. What are some of the things that I've learned? What are some of the things that I've enjoyed? What are some of the things I haven't enjoyed? What has this journey been like? I mean, the first thing I would tell anyone who's just starting off on this journey is, you survive. Sometimes when you're in the middle of that divorce, you feel like, I don't know if I can make it. And the truth is, you find out within yourself that you're a lot stronger than you thought you were. I found out that I was a lot more resilient. I definitely knew that there was times in my marriage where I thought, I can't even imagine living logistically without my spouse, let alone because of the emotional attachments and everything else. But now I look back on it and I think that was foolish of me to think that. So those are some of those little small lessons you learn in post-divorce. You're stronger than you think. You're more resilient than you think. But the healing from divorce is my responsibility. It is no one's responsibility to heal from my divorce except for me. It's up to me to put in the work. It's up to me to do the research, to do the reading, to do the counseling, to actually sit and do the meditating, to really work through those emotions and learn the lessons that I need to learn from them. The reality is there are lessons that have come through this divorce and through this time of being single so far. I don't know how else I would have learned them. And part of that's because sometimes pain is a schoolmaster. And that's unfortunate, but it truly is. It forces you into some positions that you didn't think you'd ever be in, and therefore you have to think differently than ways I never thought I'd have to think. You question things you never thought you'd question before. And that turns out to be a good thing. Well, I guess it is a good thing if you let it be a good thing. In the last year, from a covenant perspective, this is something that I went through the divorce and you still think about a little bit, because there are times when the divorce still hurts. There are times when I feel sad about the situation. But what I do know is that the covenants that I made, and when you get divorced, especially in the church, you start questioning the covenants, your sealing covenants. What about those? How are those fulfilled? Are those ever fulfilled? It throws everything kind of from your eternal perspective into disarray, and you have to figure out how to deal with that. The truth is, the only way to deal with it is to say, the Savior is the answer. Somehow, He makes he can make right out of any wrong. I don't know how that works. I have no answers for that. But what I do know is that I still have my covenants, right? My covenants are still intact. So I just have to have faith and hope in that. And someday there'll be an answer to that, but I just don't have that right now. And that's okay. It's okay to not have answers. That's another one of the things that, I've learned, I've had reinforced within me the last year is sometimes I just don't have the answers. And that's okay. I've enjoyed this last year some of the freedoms that come from being single, not having to be afraid to tell my spouse I want to do something or be nervous about whatever those things were in the past that I had are gone. And I thoroughly enjoy that. I enjoy the financial freedom that I feel. Now, financial freedom doesn't mean I get to go on vacations or do whatever I want with my money. I still have bills, I still have my children, I still have everything else that I'm financially responsible for. But there's a different kind of financial freedom that comes, and personal accountability to my finances that I thoroughly enjoy. I'll never give up. So that's one thing that or two things really I've enjoyed is the freedom and then the financial kind of accountability that I've had over the last year. So now with that financial accountability comes challenges, right? When bills come up and different unexpected expenses come, I don't have someone to rely on to talk to you about it other than just to deal with it myself. So at times it can feel a little lonely, but I've also learned to be comfortable in that. I've learned again that being alone is not the same as being lonely. And I can be alone and be very comfortable being alone. And now I don't prefer that all the time. I'm definitely a social person, so I like being around people. But I'm comfortable being alone. And that's a good thing. That doesn't mean I don't desire companionship or partnership or anything like that, because I do. But I'm very comfortable being alone as well. Some of the challenges that I would say that this past year has brought, there's a couple of them. There's a lot of men's groups. I'll speak from a male perspective. There's a lot of men's groups out there, and as you start reaching out and kind of reading about them or kind of partaking in what they have to say, you find out that a lot of them at their core are not good. Now, there are some that are wonderful. There are some men's groups that are wonderful. But there are some that at their core, I just don't find that they align with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I've had to kind of walk away from some of them and just say, I get what you're trying to do here, but you're barking up the wrong tree with this one. That this just isn't it. And you can tell typically because the men, as they go through it, instead of becoming better, tend to become a little more bitter. And that's, to me, that's, and they say it's just reality. I guess you can see reality that way if you choose to see it that way. So that's one. And just as an observation, I've seen women who are divorced who get into different women's groups and a variety of sorts. And the same thing, I find they become bitter instead of better. And they claim they're better. But from an outsider's perspective, getting to know them, it's very easy to see that it's a lot of bitter. And, it's easy because then you just walk away from that too. As a guy, I don't, it's one thing for people, it's one thing when people are hurting and they're trying to get better. But then there's some people who kind of get really hunkered down in the bitterness and feel justified in it and feel that they're now out there to right the wrongs of whatever. And what you find is that it's the source of that is bitterness, and that is not a place I want to be or enjoy being or anything like that. So I've had to learn to decipher that. And that's something over this last year I've really kind of encountered several times, both from the male and female perspective. Another thing that I've learned over the last year is that, it's okay to not be okay all the time. It's okay if you're sad about the divorce again. It's okay if some of those feelings come back up, if you get triggered by something. It's okay. A lot of times I know in the past I would kind of beat myself up over that. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling this. I shouldn't. I've learned to come and just say, okay, I feel this. Why do I feel this? What's going on inside of myself? And I don't vilify myself for it. I accept it as what it is. And then, okay, what do I need to do with this now? Is there something I need to learn? Is there something I need to work on? Is there something I need to heal further? Whatever that is, that's been one of the challenges for me myself, is to not kind of beat myself up over what I feel and to accept that it's okay to not be okay. That's been a hard lesson in some ways for me to deal with. One of the other challenges I found is that there are, as members of the church who've tried to live the gospel and have really sought after doing what's right, and none of us are perfect in that endeavor, but who've tried to. One of the challenges is just realizing that there are no resources that are good for divorced members in the church. And I don't say this to vilify the church at all. I love the church. But if you're looking for the church to provide support for someone who's going through divorce or in that newly single life, that really doesn't exist. So there are solutions to that, I think. I think some of the solutions are that we as divorced members reach out to each other. We don't rely on the church. Instead, we rely on ourselves. We become anxiously engaged in the good cause, right? That we we forge what we can to reach out to others and let others know that they're loved and they're supported, and that yeah, this single life isn't always easy, but you're not alone in it. So there are things that come out of it that are good, but I think one of the challenging aspects of divorce is that members of the church going through divorces, that we would hope that there'd be something the church would offer, but at the present time, they don't. And again, I'm not vilifying the church at all. I love the church. It's just kind of accepting a reality of the moment. But that said, really, the Savior is there, and I always tell people that we have to turn to the Savior, not to the church, and let Him guide us in the best ways that we can go. Another lesson that I've learned is that I have people come up to me now whose marriages are really struggling for one reason or another, and they'll kind of talk to me about it. And it's a challenge because I am no advocate for divorce. One of the things that I hear sometimes that just makes my skin crawl is when people say, well, it had to happen. The divorce had to happen. That makes my skin crawl when I hear that. I've heard a lot of people's divorce stories. I would say 99% of those do not fall in that category. 99% of those stories are one person or two people who were too prideful, who were unwilling to do the work on themselves to make the marriage work. And that doesn't mean it wasn't going to be hard. It probably would have been very hard. I don't want to take that away and just say, oh, it's an easy cakewalk to make a marriage work. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I hate that expression of well, it had to happen. It had to happen means it was like predestined to happen. No. Now, sometimes they happen because one person walks away. And so, okay, the reason it happened is because one person gave up on the marriage, right? And if that's what it is. Now, what I should say this, I am not the judge of why people should and shouldn't get divorced. That's between them and God. So I'm not overly judgmental on why people choose to get divorced. Because in the end, they're not accounting to me. They're going to be accountable to the Lord. Simple as that. But for the most part, when I hear people's stories, I think it's either one person or both people being too prideful and unwilling to just truly humble themselves and go to the Lord and go to counseling and do the things to work on themselves to make that marriage work. So I am, and the truth is, and I've heard this before my divorce, was when you get divorced, you're really not solving any problems. You're just you're trading one set of problems for a different set of problems. That's true. 100% true. So it doesn't really solve a whole lot for people. So I'm no advocate for divorce. The challenge is I do meet, I have met many divorced people who are, I would say they hear, they have a friend that's going through something hard with their spouse and like, oh, you should just end that marriage. You should just do this. You should just do that. I'm not that person. I do not advocate for divorce. Now, I will tell people that come to me and I say, listen, if divorce is what happens, you'll survive. You'll get through it. There is good days ahead, but it comes with challenges. It comes with heartache. It comes with pain. The truth is, I tell them this often, like, I am not the same person I was before my divorce at all. At my core, I'm the same person, but I am a different person. And it's my choice on if that's a better or worse person. If I'm willing to put in the work to make it myself a better person, there's a lot of work to do that. And it is work. And it's hard. And it takes different senses of accountability and strength and digging into things that I never thought I'd dig into and learning things I never thought I'd learn and using those with the Savior as a tool to grow. That's difficult. It really is. So I am not the same person I was. And I'd like to think I'm a better person. But I guess time will tell on that one. So again, I'm not an advocate for divorce at all. I think, but people can survive it if that's the road that they end up going down, and that they can, there's a way to make the best of that situation. So those are just a couple of the thoughts that I've had as I've thought about my divorce over the last year. What have I learned? What have I gained? You know, it's a mixed bag. In the end, that's what it is, right? There's been good, there's been challenging, there's been things that have really kind of hurt, but I've also had some growth and some learning and some understanding and experience with the Lord that I wouldn't trade for anything. So it's a mixed bag. It's life, you know. And I always tell people, do I have hope for a good future? Of course I do. Of course I do. But that doesn't mean it doesn't get dark sometimes, and you don't have to walk through the valleys before you get to the mountain peaks. And even when you're in the valleys, you can find some joy in it. There's something to be found that is good there. And even if we don't see it all, when we start to ascend those mountains again, we'll start seeing the good that was in those valleys. So anyways, those are the lessons that I've really kind of thought most about over the last year. I know this video's been a bit of a jumbled mess, and I apologize for that. But again, so I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but this channel is not endorsed by the church. I'm not a counselor or therapist, just been through a divorce, learned a few lessons. And although I've always introed my videos with, I'm recently been through a divorce, I'm not sure I'm going to intro them that way anymore. I've been divorced, and I don't know how recently a year is, but I don't know if it's recently anymore. So I'm going to just change what I do here. Anyways, thanks for coming to my channel.